Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Let's start with a few happy birthdays with people involved in episodes we recorded before. So today is the 21st of September. On that day, 55 years ago, Angus MacFadyen was born. He is the Vice Consul Dupont in Equilibrium and mostly Robert the Bruce in Braveheart, which was our episode 18.
Yeah.
You can go and listen to that when you want. And he will come in our life again when we reach Saw 3.
Yeah, that's soon.
Yes. Ethan Cohen turns 61. He co-wrote The Big Lebowski, Hail Caesar, Bridge of Spies, and Suburbicon.
Shout out to the popularity of that episode, by the way. That's surprisingly popular.
Interesting man, then, because those are interesting.
Well, him and his brother are really cool guys.
Co-wrote, yeah. And our brother...
Joel. I think it's Joel Cohen.
Yep, indeed. Yeah. Suburbicon episode 14. Bill Murray, 68. In our recent Ghostbusters episode 43 and 44, the original and the reboot. And we'll end with Stephen King, who is 71 today.
Wow.
Yeah, you can go listen to our It Chapter 1 episode 5.
There's a fun fact. This was a surprise episode because today is about John Wick, as you've read by the title card. So this was a complete surprise to me and Anouk because we were like, okay, we're going to record another episode, which I won't name yet because in case if it comes out before this. So we're going to record another episode. And Yann
We're doing it next week.
Yeah. And Yann goes, it's a year today since we put out the episode on John Wick. I was like, oh, really? That's quite interesting. So today we're following up with John Wick Chapter 2.
Yes. 21st of September 2017. That was the day. Episode 4, actually.
It's one of the first episodes we recorded in this flat. It is the first episode because Atomic Blonde is the last episode we did because I've got a photo of us just before we recorded that drinking. Me and Yann have a Bailey's and Anouk has a gin of some kind. And then we moved to this flat 6 months before Yann moves in, but we still moved here and we started recording episodes in this flat.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Indeed.
Little history.
John Wick episode 4. John Wick Chapter 2 shall be episode 54.
That's well done.
If you are on Patreon, you can watch this episode on the correct day, the 21st of September. That's today. Everyone else will get that a bit later. And we'll probably try, if the movie doesn't suck ass, to release John Wick Parabellum, which is the third film, on John Wick Day next year, 21st of September.
Do we have a release date for that film yet?
Yeah, it's way before. It's in May or June or something.
Oh, right, okay. Fair play.
Yeah, May 2019.
That's cool.
Mm.
Hopefully you guys will hear the outro that I did. I think that'll be out by now. For the plugging.
The outro is actually we are the 21st. That thing you do is going out today. Well, so if you
it's on that one.
Yeah, on 21st.
Cool.
Is that's the first one.
It saves us painfully trying to plug all of our stuff during the episode, just like trying to fit it into the normal conversation. Because I listen to it's a really good podcast actually. I think it's called the Two Shot Podcast. It's a guy that goes around interviewing actors and so on, like musicians, all that sort of people. And he recently had Carl Pilkington on, and they were talking about sponsorships at the beginning. It's like it's always stuff that you don't need. Like I've got enough underwear, I've got a website, I'm like, yeah, that's very true. So it's it's so unnatural to like read out, follow my Twitter, follow my Instagram during an episode. So I figured why not just stick it at the end, and if people want to find us, they will.
Yeah, sure.
Anouk's looking at me like, what the fuck are you talking about?
That was not needed. Like,
That's probably true. This won't be in the final episode. It probably will be, and Yann will be like, actually, no, I'm going to edit this one and take that whole bit out.
I'll just see how long the episode ends up being. So in terms of the actual film, I'll start by saying that sometimes we start to watch a movie together, and the way I see you react makes me think, oh, damn, I thought they were going to enjoy this. And you don't look like you are. However, when I know a movie is that weird that you may dislike it, I tell you, I knew that I liked this one. So there was a chance that you might like it too. And we often reference actually John Wick as a, like, is it that John Wick good?
Before we really nailed down when Yann brought in the flares for episodes, we used to use, is it John Wick good? Or is it John Wick seemed to be the comparison point for every good movie. It's like, yeah, John Wick was good, but this film is better than John Wick, so it's like a very good. Like, it was a really weird system we had back in the day when we were beginning. It's like, oh yeah, we're good, bad, and just plain standard. But with the flares, it's made the whole use of John Wick good kind of fade out. So I am quite happy about it, because when I was watching this film, I was thinking about John Wick, the first one. I was like, you know what, John Wick 1's a pretty decent action flick.
Wikipedia tells us that it's a neo-noir action thriller film.
All right, fair play.
Yeah.
Neo-noir.
Mm.
Well, I mean, noir films are like, there's 40 films, like the whole, like, the chief's in on it too. Hey, what's he going on, Gov? All those sort of, like, Hollywood corruption stories, right? That's noir.
Yeah. There's also a huge visual element to it.
Yeah.
I'll go into the plot quickly. So, John Wick starts by going after his car that was stolen following the events of the first film, and when he's getting ready to retire, Santino D'Antonio, a new antagonist who helped John Wick at some point, needs his help. The thing is that John doesn't want, but he gave that Santino guy a blood marker a while ago because he helped him in some way. We're not sure what it is at that point. And now he has to help the guy who is a Camorra Lord. That's the mafia in Napoli. Camorra.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. Gomorra in Italian actually. So that's pretty much how it starts. And
yeah.
No.
I will say, the only reference point I had for this film was when me and Anouk went to New York last year around this time. I tried to watch this on a plane. I didn't get past the start action scene just because it didn't really work on one of these tiny screens you get on a plane. Watching that on our TV that we have here was pretty fun and pretty enjoyable. So I'm glad I got past that point, because I knew if I got past that, then everything else is new to me. So I can judge this with plain eyes.
Yeah, I think the beginning is quite weak. I don't know why. It just feels like everything. There's no feeling. There's no. I don't know. Like there was no originality in it.
I mean,
so and that's why I was making fun of it, like in the beginning. But actually, when it comes to the story and the whole film, it was really enjoyable.
It felt like DLC, which is weird to say for a film. It felt, in game terms, DLC is the extra content they give you throughout the year, like maybe they've worked on after it. But it always reminds you of what the base game is at the start and then gets you into something new. That sequence felt like it was like, oh yeah, remember John Wick? Like, here's what he does. This is what he's capable of. But I agree with you. It was very like, this is an action scene.
Yeah, it's almost like it was set up to start the film, but it didn't want to use really, really good choreography. It was like waiting to use its like good choreography and good storytelling later on in the film, and this was just kind of, tapped on at the end.
I feel that because it works as a link between, because it's apparently 4 days after the events of the first film, he goes and gets the car. It feels like almost extra footage in a way. Like that scene could have been added in the first one. You know how we have like extended editions these days? Like that scene could have been added in the first one and it wouldn't really have.
Yeah, exactly.
It wouldn't have taken away. And if it wasn't in this film, it wouldn't take away from the overall story either, because it doesn't really come back into play at any other point.
No, it was kind of tapped on. But I kind of understand why it was used, because it was a chance for us to be introduced again to this guy who basically can kill anyone without a gun. Like, that's his whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess it was needed, but it just felt a bit lazy.
I agree. I mean, the bit where he's like fighting in the warehouse after the car's all smashed up and it's like different henchmen turn up, almost felt like Scott Pilgrim versus the World. You know that film? You know how that film is obviously the graphic novel is making fun of like boss fights because he has to fight the evil ex-boyfriends, and every scene, every time he fights one, it's a difference. Like there's that moment of setup. It's like, oh yeah, and it'll be like Scott versus person. It felt like that. It's like, oh, John Wick versus henchman round 3, which was cool for me as a video game player. I'm like, yeah, this is quite cool. I mean, it made me like wish that video game movies worked, which they don't. But it was like, if anything is close, this is quite close to what a video game movie could feel like. Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed that, but I agree it was very like, like set piece to set piece to set piece to set piece. But if that's what what they're going for in that beginning, it's like, let's get you into this movie. This is what we're going for forward. This is the sort of film you're in for, and it needs to be there because I think for us, I think one of the things we did badly with the first time we watched John Wick is I think we were too much comparison to like any other sort of film. So I said to Anouk when we were watching, it's like I'm not comparing this to like say like I don't know, what did we talk about? Like the thing, take it for example, Yann mentioned before that thing you do. Like I'm not comparing it to that. I'm going to look at it with the same lenses that when we watched Predator, because they're closer in genre.
Because they're kind of making fun of their own genre.
Yeah. Well, not even that. Like they embrace what they are. They're not hiding the fact that, oh yeah, this is like we're going to throw some action here. It's like this is an action flick. This is a throwback to when we used to have like Arnold Schwarzenegger was in everything, or it was like Die Hard, or like Jason Bourne. Like I haven't seen an action series like Jason Bourne's is one of those rare ones that because it was a novel as well. Like it's got story and action, but there's very much the defining point in the films is that like very fast-paced, heavy-hittingness of the Bourne series. Like you feel all the punches in the Bourne films. So with that in mind, I'm like I haven't seen anything like Bourne since Bourne. And John Wick kind of fills that void of like here's an action thriller with some like story in it as well.
Apologies to our YouTube and Patreon watchers again. I forgot to switch it. So the first 9 minutes of this episode had the face of John Wick surrounded by guns instead of our faces. But
that should be the video feed for the YouTube. Just John Wick's face. Oh dear.
That's all good.
That's fine.
Major spoilers. There are no dog death.
Oh, your mum can watch this one then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank God.
Claire can finally watch John Wick.
It was a really nice dog, actually.
Yeah.
It's very cute.
A dog has no name.
Yeah, dog has no name. I'm not sure.
Although, because we've played God of War now, every time he kept going, boy. I'm like, oh yeah, it's Kratos, boy.
In terms of development built upon what came before, I really liked all the new Continental Hotel development.
I remember in the episode I said that was one of the things I'm like, that's what I wish they'd developed on more, like the whole hotel thing. Like that was very cool in the first one.
Very cool idea.
And I'm glad they did. I mean, they didn't do it to the whole degree of like, this is where we founded it, all that sort of thing that they could have done. But it was done enough. It gave you enough backstory that you were like, yeah, I get this place. This is quite cool. And they actually, when we get to the end of the film, they do pay off. Like, it's not just like, it's like base camp. Like base can't get me sort of thing. Like there is actually a like, if you do mess about, then it will come back to bite you sort of thing.
Yeah, there was a way after. So this film was released last year, 2017, and I think somewhere in the beginning of that year. Now there was Hotel Artemis with.
Wasn't that this year? No, that was this year because I remember
yeah.
Oh, you mean this year? Sorry.
Yeah. 2018 Hotel Artemis with Jeff Goldblum. Well, he has a small role and he's revealed a bit, but mostly Jodie Foster as the nurse, which felt. And I went to type Hotel Artemis, John Wick on the internet, and many people are wondering if there was a ripoff of some kind or something, because there are loads. Well, the theme of the Hotel for Criminal will obviously get some similarities at some point, but I didn't get entertained.
The thing is, though, that idea does exist. I mean, even look in animation, you look at Hotel Transylvania, which is the idea is it's like a hotel for villains, like super monsters. Like, the idea of the place where the bad guys go is about, and it always has been. But when you do similar themes, i.e., like, it's a criminal place where you hide, there are tokens, you can't kill each other in this, like, sort of place. Like, when you start getting to that point, then you have to go, okay, come on, that's a bit too similar.
I tried to watch recently Hotel Transylvania because the third one was getting released or something.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't get into it. I don't know.
I really like the first one. I haven't seen any of the other ones yet. The animation style, the story is a bit like, okay, but the animation in the film is really enjoyable. I really like that because it's done. It's one of the few successful Sony movies Sony animations, I should say. Because obviously the train wreck that was the Emoji Movie, everyone did a deep dive on Sony animations. Whereas the directors, I don't know if you've seen it, it's like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
No.
Have you seen it, Nick?
It's one of my favourite films.
It's the two guys that did that are the two guys that went on to do the Lego Movie.
Yeah, though it's really clever.
So there are people, and I believe the guy who did Hotel Transylvania was meant to do the Popeye reboot, I believe. I also believe that he was involved in Dexter. You remember the Dexter's Laboratory? I believe it's the same sort of guy, but I might be wrong about that.
Yeah, don't say Dexter, honey, because that's
Oh no, sorry,
different.
not the TV series Dexter with the terrible final season. No, I mean Dexter's Laboratory, the classic 1990s film.
Yeah.
Film TV cartoon series.
Yeah, okay.
Dexter series. I watched 3 first seasons, and then I was like, yeah, okay, I missed so many seasons, so I just went to see the very last episode.
Oh, don't do that.
It was a test.
I'm having the same problem. I mean, I'm trying to watch The Sopranos, but obviously everyone in the world knows how The Soprano ends because it's one of oh god, that ending. So I'm still trying to get into it, but I know what you mean. Like, you end up watching the last episode.
There are 2 things that I particularly liked. The weapons sommelier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was quite cool. And the way that the sister, Jenna, dies with class.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she understands what the marker means and she basically lets John Wick have his way. When a poor Hollywood movie would have her try to kill him to avoid dying or something.
Yeah.
She didn't.
No, she's like, I'm going to die on my own terms. Basically, if I'm going to die, I'm going to kill myself.
Did you realize that around the time of the weapon sommelier scene, the tailor, the guy is the actual costume designer?
Oh.
Yeah.
I did not know that. That's cool.
Yeah. Also very nice, the subtitles, always in a John Wick style kind of thing.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's keeping with I think that adds to your noir setting as well, having that sort of consistency in your design throughout the film in every aspect of it.
Yeah, I liked that a lot. I thought it was really, really nice.
Talking about that Jenna scene, you said something that I don't have that reference because I've only seen the first movie. Hostel 2 flashbacks?
Yes.
So the setup for that scene is obviously when John Wick goes to kill the first, to repay the debt for the marker, the woman has this giant bathtub in the middle of this ancient ruin, and there's obviously, because she dies, there's blood in the bathtub. Hostel Part 2, which we will talk about in reference to the Saw series later on, but I'll bring it up here. There's a scene in the second Hostel film where a girl is attached to the roof, and then this other woman comes in with a big scythe and she's lying in this sort of tub and just bathes in the victim's blood, sort of thing. She lashes off and bathes in the person's blood. So that's why I was getting Hostel 2 flashbacks.
That's how you pronounce that word, scythe.
Yeah, scythe.
I've always wondered, the way it's scythe. I never. Yeah, okay, great.
Scythe, yeah.
You laughed when the silencers, the silences scene between Cassian and John in the corridors to avoid detection by the passerbys. Like they were.
That was amazing. I thought it was really clever. But also it's like with the what am I trying to say? The color scheme of this film, like you had better.
Yeah, just be closer. You were a bit far back.
Well, I'm either close or my face can't be seen. Like I give me a second.
It's too bad.
No, that won't work like this. No.
Hello.
No.
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
Hello.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
just start that bit again. We can edit around that.
Yeah, I was saying that I really like the color scheme of that scene. Well, the whole film actually, but that scene, because you had the white walls that were like a reflective material, and like a long corridor with everyone wearing quite dark colors, and then you had these two people on different levels,
Level.
shooting at each other, but not screaming. It was really surreal, but also kind of fit. Like it wasn't too much. Yeah, I laughed, but mostly because it was like different. Like I didn't really know how to like. Oh, this is weird.
The one thing I will say about this film is I lost count how many mirror shots there are, or should I say reflective shots. So if you see a person and their reflection, the first time it appears is in the fight scene in the with the taxis. You can see him punch somebody and you see the reflection in the puddle. But nearly every table in the film, you can see a reflection of the actors. I mean, it was quite interesting, but after a point, I got like, oh, this will be another reflection. And then even at the end, the whole thing is in a hall of mirrors sort of things. I'm like, oh, it's reflection section.
Well, the thing is that I wonder, it's like, well, it's just like in the movie Wonder, actually, if they use CGI to remove the cameras.
They have to. Yeah. Because there's a scene, especially in like when John is confronting the woman in Italy. There's no.
Is her name Alexandra? No, Gianna.
Oh no, the which one? The sister?
The sister.
Yeah, Jenna.
When that room has so many mirrors in it, well, one on both sides of the room, and you're like, there's no way the camera would not be seen. So they obviously have some sort of rig to like cover it up or something like that.
I quite like the idea that you kind of said that they must cover the camera with green, so they can kind of green screen it.
Yeah.
And then kind of put something over it so that it's not there. I mean, I don't know if that would work, but if it does, that's a genius
work.
idea. Yeah, it's interesting.
That would work. I mean, the reason that I remember is because me and Anouk just recently watched Godfather 1 the other week. And there's a scene in there where Carlo Rizzi is attacking his wife before somebody goes out to meet their end. And he's like, goes into this other room because she's hiding in the bathroom and like he's just wailing on her. But to get in the room, he punches the door open, which has a mirror on it, which swings back because he hits it with so much force and he goes into the room. And the way the camera is, you would obviously see it in the reflection at one point, but you never do because you're like just paying attention to the scene. And I was thinking, because that movie is filmed in like the 70s, that's even more difficult to get like rid of in post-production.
I was actually wondering then, if you actually had the camera very, very far back and zoomed.
Yeah, that would work as well. But you would obviously see a tiny bit of something, but you'd have to be eagle-eyed for it. That you'd have to be in that scene just paying attention to where if you can spot a camera.
Right.
Because that happens all the time. I mean, you see, in any sort of media, you'll see the camera. The one that comes to my mind right now is the band A Flock of Seagulls, Iran. Is the whole thing is like on a revolve, like they move round and round and round, but you can see the camera like at some point. Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
see the tripod stand.
Right, it's like like continuity stuff. But
Yeah.
the Wonder one I was talking about is, you know, when Augie is imagining he's actually an astronaut and he's jumping in school, and you can see obviously the helmet is the mirror in front, and you just see as well, you don't see a camera reflected. So,
Yeah.
at some point, there is an open contract of 7 million on John Wick, so half of the city tries to kill him. I liked how the editing was done in there, like the fights were divided, and a bit of a fight, another bit, another one, and all the finishing moves in sequence at the end,
Yeah.
which was quite neat to see.
Well, the first film was done by the two stunt brother team, right? That went on to do Atomic Blonde, the two brothers, right?
Yes.
This film isn't isn't directed by the same people, but the spirit of it carries on with the choreography. Like, I think that's the thing that stood out so much for John Wick is the film choreography was so good. Like, it was memorable. So
There is just one, because for John Wick, if I remember correctly, for John Wick, they said it was just one of the two guys because of the Actors Guild.
It was a technicality. That they would have.
The two guys, one of the two guys was the guy who directed this one.
As well.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's why I'm getting confused. So it's
Yeah.
the same team, right? Fair play.
Yeah. So it's something that you can see as early as the Matrix, the reloading stuff. John Wick has 7 bullets at one point, and he goes to kill people who needed some good killing, and does not magically create bullets. He actually takes the guns of said people.
Shout out to the finale of Walking Dead season 2 again. If you've seen that scene, you'll know what I mean. They're like fleeing a camp and the farm, and one of the people has a shotgun and he fires like 18 to 25 shots and never reloads. In like a shotgun that maybe can hold maximum 8 rounds, 8 shells before you have to reload manually like that. He's just going boom, 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 cut, boom, 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 like that. It's ridiculous.
Also in Terminator.
Or recently, let's shout out the scene in Predator where they waste all of their ammo just like blaying into no idea if the Predator is actually there, and they just fire for hours upon hours upon hours of this like that.
Yeah.
The Gatling.
Gatling gun and all.
But that has a lot of rounds though, right? So that would be fair enough. But not every single one of them has a Gatling gun, so I'm not really sure how many rounds each gun of theirs has.
Me and Anouk watched the Cinema Sins for the Predator, which came out alongside the Honest trailer, and the guy's like, yeah, to carry that much ammo, you would need like 3 people to carry because those rounds weigh a ton.
Yeah, right. It's just it's not reality, it's just kind of entertainment purposes.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But yeah, it's cool when they obey real life rules of like, yeah, you can't just, reload an ammo, like reload and then like, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah, because that's his thing as well, right? So if they didn't think about that, then it's just like, oh, well, his thing is that he doesn't need his own ammo. He will use things around him to kill the people in front of him.
I like how the opposite end of that is when people in films reload when they don't need to reload. Because in a video game, when you reload, you don't lose any bullets. But in reality, if you reload a gun and you haven't emptied the magazine, you lose those bullets. Because you can't put them back in another round. You have to use the entire thing, otherwise you'll lose the bullets.
Yeah.
So when films just ignore that and they just like change, like they fired like 2 shots and then they reload, I'm like, what about the other like 8 rounds that was in there? That's a waste.
This film, in a non-Hollywood way, takes some brutal and bold moves, which makes then the Fortis Fortuna Eduve tattoo quite appropriate.
Fortune favors the brave.
The the bold?
I thought it was Fortune Favours the Bold.
I think it is.
Bold. Oh, sorry. That's what I meant.
That's from, isn't it like a Francis Drake quote?
Well, no, because it's Latin.
Well, obviously it's Latin. But
yeah.
they spoke Latin in Francis Drake's time, didn't they?
Yeah.
Well, they would have. Well, they will. Well, obviously not, because like you've got like kings and queens, but the educated would have used Latin, so he would have.
I thought it would have been older than that, but you might be right.
I think that's where it's made popular from that, but it's before that time. Like it all existed long before that. I just know that
so
from
he just made it popular.
Well, who made it popular was like Naughty Dog and Uncharted, because I think that's how I knew the quote. I'm like, oh yeah, isn't that Francis Drake? Because it appears in one of the Uncharted games. It's either Francis Drake or Marco Polo. It's one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is Francis Drake.
Yeah, you might be right.
Because it's what's on Nathan Drake's thing, isn't it? No, that's Greatness from Small Beginnings.
Yes.
So that's a different one. So maybe I'm getting them confused, but I've definitely heard I think that's Fortune Favours the Brave. Bold.
Oh.
There you go.
Yeah.
I might be wrong with that. I'm going to Google it before.
I checked earlier. I think it's the bold, but in this film we have Lawrence Fishburne in the role of the same character he always plays.
Yeah, definitely. He's even got the robes and the whole kind of layered wool look. I don't know. I feel like there are so many films where he's been in that role.
Yeah, well, the Lord Varys, mysterious type. Yeah, always like for 2 minutes in the whole movie, kind of thing. Did you see the what triggered John Wick being a bard from the everything? Did you see that coming?
Yes. But I didn't see. I didn't see that. What's his name? The manager.
Yeah.
Ian McShane.
Wilson.
Winston.
Winston, thank you. I didn't see that he would help him, give him an hour to run, and also the amount of power that this guy has, like the fact that he could just with a phone call have everyone stop around. So it's like he controls the city with just a click of his fingers. Like, I didn't know how much power he had outside the Assassin Society, the Continental. So that was quite interesting and actually made me quite excited for the third one. So, I mean, it's a pretty good way to end a film. Like, I wonder what happens in the next film. So, but I did see that John Wick would kill him, the Italian guy.
Right.
But actually, I totally forgot that the Continental was the hotel. I thought that it was like the area was called the Continental. I was like, right, okay. Oh no, it's the Assassin Society that they're in. Right, okay. I get it now.
If you look at the some documentaries, they tell how, because I think we talked about that in the first John Wick episode, but fights, the way when we did our what was it? Game of Death, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, Game of Death.
We rehearsed the whole sequence, but it's not the way it was filmed. They filmed most of the fights entirely, and every time everyone was impressed because everyone that was like, I think the director talked about like a cornerstone or keystone. Well, the actor every time something was asked of him, he would actually do it without, like, there was no like, I just can't or something, which makes it that you've ever seen the Dracula Coppola Dracula movie?
No, I have not.
You've got, you type Dracula, you type Keanu Reeves bad acting in YouTube.
Oh, and I know the scene. No, I know what you're on about.
You'll get plenty of those. He's grown.
Yeah, he was quite. I thought he was quite believable in this film. I thought there was no one in this film that I thought, oh God, you've ruined it for me. So yeah, I really enjoyed this film as a whole. Like the only thing that let it down was actually the first like 10 minutes. But because it was the first 10 minutes, it kind of allowed for it, because you kind of forget about it quite quickly, that it was a little bit lazy.
It also had the goal to actually do the transition between the previous one and the new one. So
Right, it's tough. It's tough feat, yeah.
Do you have anything in mind to add that I may not have thought about in my notes?
I really liked how he reloaded his gun with one hand.
Oh, primed it.
Yeah, like looked at the barrel. I'm guessing it's the barrel of the gun, right? When you like pull the top bit back.
That's priming, I think. Like you
priming.
Like when you put the bullets in the gun and then you like pull the thing to get the actual bullet in the chamber.
Right.
I think it's called priming. I'm not sure. We're in Britain. We don't have guns over here.
No. Yeah.
We don't know how to use them legally.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of British people know how to use a gun, but anyway.
Farmers.
Yeah.
Farmers'
also,
mums.
Yes, Adam. But he did it with one hand, and I thought that was quite slick. And it literally happened for 2 seconds. So I don't know if anyone else saw it, but
I don't know why I liked this, but there was 2 shots of the film where you saw like loads of Greek gods as statues, and I was like, I don't know why we got this in here, but this is quite cool. Like you saw Poseidon, you saw obviously Zeus, and you saw Athena and sort of like that. I'm like, all right, they've got some Greek statues over there.
It's because they're in a museum.
Well, I know, but I was like, that's quite cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's your call me by your name, stealing beauty moment there.
Yeah.
Who was the artist?
Oh my god.
It was. But I think the first one had this too, the kind of like beautiful landscapes and surroundings, like fight scenes that are in, the Vatican City.
And saying that, I don't think any of the fight scenes really came close to the first fight scene in the first one, in the house where he's getting invaded. I distinctly remember that fight scene. Yeah,
but then you also have the fight scene in that neon brothel.
Oh yeah, God, that was good.
It's insanely good. It was so
when he was going to get Alfie Allen. Yeah, that was good too.
And I thought that was is it the Avengers 4?
No, 4's not out yet. Avengers 3, Infinity War.
Okay. Yeah, took quite a lot of their quite a lot of ideas from that scene, because they had that like neon and gold and black kind of contrasting colors in that scene with the Black Panther and the people from, where are they from? Wakanda, thank you.
Well, when they fought the Thanos' minions sort of things at the end of the film. Or do you mean in Black Panther?
Or maybe I'm talking about Black Panther.
Oh, do you mean the bit where he's like chasing Andy Serkis?
Yes.
On the car?
In the beginning.
Yeah, I know where you're. Yeah, around I know where you are. No, that's Black Panther.
And it's got kind of like Oriental themes in it.
Yeah, no, that's Black Panther.
Yeah. So
I know the bit you're on about,
that's anyway. That scene really reminded me of John Wick, neon brothel fight scene. But then this one had the subway stations.
That was quite good.
The World Trade Center. It kind of looked like a heart monitor.
On the walls.
Graph, behind them.
We were in there and I didn't recognize any of it, but we probably didn't go down to that line because it does look like that.
I'd never seen that before. It looked like it was made for the film, but I'm sure it wasn't.
But based on the world, that's the actual subway station. But I do remember it that the corridors are exactly like that, but I don't know if it's the actual place or not. Could be wrong on that though.
I'm guessing that's the role of the cinematographer.
Set design, cinematographer.
Set design.
Cinematographers probably comes up with the idea of that, the shot that you liked when they're walking.
Well,
that's probably cinematographer.
Actually, when I was the conman 3 years ago, what's his name? Jay Hunter was the cinematographer there, who also did some additional photography for Avengers.
All right, cool.
I actually went to ask. Okay, so I don't really want to go on Wikipedia because I'm really I have no idea what you do all day. So what's the cinematographer doing? Most of the time he holds the camera. Not always, there's the camera operator. But he coordinates the lights and the shots.
Yeah.
And that's what they do pretty much.
Yeah, they design. They're like the painter almost. Like the director says, "I want this," and the cinematographer will go out and like get that shot made, and the director will decide, "Yeah, I want that," or "No, I don't."
Right. Okay,
like example, saying like a western, like in a western film that I remember very much for True Grit, has a really nice cinematography, and it's like scenes of like plains and these big massive almost mountain sort of like red stone. You see all these classic images, and like that's cinematography. Or like Isle of Dogs, where everything we saw looked like a painting. Like you could pause the film at that one point and go, "That's a picture."
Well, we'll talk about Sicario at some point. When you yourself try to film stuff and you only have an iPhone and you want to film a sunset,
yeah,
the kind of work that is going into some of the night shots that are in Sicario that are just beautiful. It's just like, okay, that's wow.
A weird segue for this. So in Britain, there's a reality show on the now called The Circle, right? Which me and Anouk have got into. And one of the most interesting things in the program is the editors. Because obviously the show's premise is these people are all like playing a game show, but they don't have any social interaction except through like the internet. So they don't ever see each other. So all the conversations are via like voice to text chat. But the editors have made it edit the footage together. So like when they're speaking out to the voice, like to text type, it then cuts immediately to the other person replying. So it's not like boring, like watching somebody send a message, then they read the message. Like it feels like a conversation. And then when we got to the credits of that, there are 2 pages of editors. There's like the daily editors, which are obviously who watch the program like the dailies back, edit bits together to go, that's good, that good, that's good, that good. And then they hand off to what's known as finishing editors, which are who make the program, who like put all those bits together and go, right, let's keep that. Let's go back and find something else for that conversation. Yeah. And it just makes you aware of like how important editing is. Because me and Anouk had this conversation. Anouk made a really good point about, you were talking about having to know story. Mm-hmm. And that editing is one of those underrated categories in the film industry, because you give it to somebody, obviously, to have an outside eye, but it's got to be somebody that understands story structure, because they can't just like throw things together. It's one of the reasons that Suicide Squad doesn't work as well, because the big shocker there was they gave the final edit of the film to a trailer company that did the edit for the trailer, which is fine, but that's an art in itself. Like making a trailer is taking stuff together and making people want to go and see it or get excited for it. Whereas the finished product is creating an overall story that has nuance and so on and forth. So
In terms of editing, there was one scene here. It was in the mirror room that reminded me of something that I actually don't do in my edits. We have a family house which was built in 1532, and it was my grandparents'. And when they gave that to my mother, her brother, and sister, it was divided into 3. But now there are some changes. So not so long ago, we actually opened a sealed wall to actually make 2 parts as a single entity again.
All right.
And I was filming from behind, and my mom was filming from the side. And when I edited, I didn't do what they do here and what you always see in movies, which I didn't remember. So you see the same person going through a window from different angles, but they actually repeat the whole maneuver. Mm. When I edited myself, I went with the flow. Like my brother was like, he gave a punch into the thingy, and you can see as if it was filmed as it happened. Instead of here, for dramatic purposes, I guess it was done 2 times. So it was from the side, you could see the window break, and then it is just like a matter of less than a second, but still, you see it twice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those really difficult things because it takes, because I've tried to do that in footage that I've shot, and the difficulty becomes trying to get the shot to line up for the time, because you have to be like within that millisecond, otherwise you're as a person, you go, I've just seen that. It has to be so seamless that you don't realize you're watching the same thing again.
Yeah.
And that's when it's really
like
skillful.
one shot. Yeah, that happens at exactly the same time, but actually you're watching two different shots.
Correct, yeah.
I think, well, if when we're talking about the circle, I was thinking about that because one person said, oh, I feel really bad that person's gone. And then it cuts to someone else going, woo, I haven't left yet. And it's like the kind of two different...
sides, aspects?
No. Reactions that you would have, and the two different types of people that you're going to have on a game show. One person that's like gets connected and feels more, and then the other person who would be more happy that he wasn't the person to leave. And that quick editing makes you, the audience, laugh because it's like, oh, there are two different reactions happening. And it's like a split second thing, but the fact that you have like 20 different editors, that's like how many different people thought through that immediate reaction.
It's great to see, and also watching something with an editor's eye going like, that will be useful for somebody else to take this thing and make it into something else. Like being able to pick apart something to go, that's good, that's good, that's good. But that's good for a reason that I won't be able to see it. Like, I think that's good, and then somebody else goes, that's great that you found that, because that links to what somebody else found. You know, like the whole level of like a network of editors is really interesting.
The thing that is a bit sad though is from an actor's point of view. So I have this friend. She's the daughter of the owner of the restaurant right in front of my sister's restaurant.
Right.
My age, ginger, gorgeous. Anyway, and she's an actress. And she does stage mostly, but she only started doing short films recently. And just like I did before her, it's all fake with the editing, and it's really a hard thing to get your head around.
Yeah.
That you have absolutely no control. She was saying like she wasn't really comfortable, or really didn't really. Well, I don't remember exactly, but she didn't feel it was any good, and it turned out amazingly good on the screen. So.
Yeah, that's the thing of like, you can be the best you are on set, and then it's up to somebody else who has talent as well to pick out your best things. I mean, it's interesting editing and being an actor, because you now, not that you know like what editors look for because everyone is different, but you're aware of like any of the stuff, anything that I do here and I think is terrible, somebody else with no inner self judgment of what I'm doing will see that scene and go, that works exactly because I've picked this other moment before. And it's always interesting to see in bad films, not because of an editor's point, you'll see like reactions don't match each other. Obviously because the editor goes, that's a better shot and that's a better shot. So it's really weird to watch. Sometimes you're like, because I know there are actors, I mean, Ian Holm is one of these actors. He would always give like a different interpretation of the scene each time. And do something different. So he's like, he thinks of it as like giving the editor a palette to choose from. It's like, you can have this scene, this scene, this scene, however you want it. So it is interesting from both an actor's point and an editor's point of going, I've got to work within what I know the scene is, because another person is going to pick apart the scene and put it together again.
Yeah, and I think also as an actor, you need to understand what your job is. And after your job is done, you have no say. And that's kind of fair enough, because you don't really want, while you're acting, for an editor to come in and go, excuse me, can you do this? Because that's so much. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are certain things that you... And I think it is tough, because an actor is someone who sells themselves without being a prostitute. Right? So it's hard not to have it being personal and for ego to get involved, because you're selling... your own reactions, your own experiences, anything that you yourself can bring to the table. But actually, you're doing a job as much as anyone else is. And that for me, makes it easier to make, especially with film, because it's not so immediate and you're not like there in the audience. Like with film, that's what helps me, is that you're all making something and you're just part of the process.
If anything, you should feel that you can take more risks because
someone else will clean up afterwards.
not for that reason.
Well,
because like an editor can, because I edited me and your show reels, and even though like the cuts are consistent, for my one example, I have something that you really shouldn't really do in a show reel, which is I have a monologue that is the whole thing, because I can't really cut, because I didn't film other shots, but mainly because like when I watched it back, I went, this one scene needs to be consistent because I don't want any distractions from the narrative of the piece, because it's a guy telling a story. It's essentially a guy trying to apologize, but being a man about it by avoiding the subject and telling another thing. So it's really about the words and the performance of like avoiding the subject. So you have to consist on that. And if you cut away, it distracts from that. So I didn't want to do that. But the main thing in that is that when you I forgot what I was talking about. I started off with something really important. And you said, what did you say before that? You said something about you can clean up the mess.
Yeah.
I went from that. I think I remember what I'm saying. This will be. I'll get Yann, when you get to this point of the episode, give it to me. I'll work around it. So essentially, what you want is the ability to, because somebody can I've remembered. Right. So I started off this story by saying pointless thing about my show reel. That doesn't need to be in this, but we'll work it out.
Bloody hell,
Essentially, when you edit something, you can edit on one day and come back the next day and go, I like that better than the first day. So you come in and look at it again. So you're seeing the scene several times and going, you know what? That bit in there, that little bit that she did in that scene works better here. So you cut that little bit, you put it in, and then you go back and forth.
Yeah.
You find everything. You find little bits in everything.
Yeah, and as an editor, well, the director gives you instructions, but you do your best to give multiple options, and sometimes it ends up being better or different, or so that's a whole collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, it's like how Patrick Tucker was talking about, especially. Thank you, Adam. Especially the in a soap opera, and there's like a dialogue scene, react even if the camera isn't on you, because, well, the camera will always be on you, but I just mean that when you're not speaking, it doesn't mean you're not acting, because if an editor sees that you've got a really interesting reaction, you can get more screen time. It's kind of a game like that. It's kind of brutal, but it's like, that's how brutal it can be, because it's like, that's what you have to do. Just keep acting.
It's that scene in Shining, right? The interview kind of thing, and where the third guy is just seen 1 second, even though he's in the room the whole time.
Oh yeah. I know the exact scene you're on about. Yeah.
Do you think we have a few minutes left, like 8 minutes? We could go into the rating.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
So, Anouk, Yann, was John Wick 2? Was it chapter 2 or just 2?
Chapter 2.
John Wick, chapter 2. Good, bad, or just plain standard? Anouk?
This is a tough one because, okay, it's good with a flair of a bit of a cash grab from the first one.
Wow, we were really positive, and then it's like cash grab.
No, well, no, that's like a side point. I just mean that I kind of want to say that.
Fair enough. Is it too Hollywoodized? No,
and I'm also kind of going against Hollywood Eye slowly.
Because don't say that. We can't put on a t-shirt. That was a great contender for the t-shirt.
No. There are certain things that are definitely Hollywoodized, but I think that not everything Hollywood is Hollywoodized, if that makes sense.
Fair enough.
That Hollywood gets quite a bad rap sometimes, and actually there are a few films that if you really watch them and give them time and respect, you realize that they are actually quite intelligent and they've got things to say. You just have to give them the time. So that's why I'm saying this is good, because I actually really enjoyed it. Okay, so it was good with flair of enjoyable.
Yeah.
They, in terms of grabbing the cash,
Grabbing.
they did they earned twice as much as they did with the first movie.
Yeah, this one did well.
Yeah. I would say it's a good movie as a movie with a flair of an excellent John Wick movie.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
For me, we finished the movie and I was sitting there, I remembered something I mostly think about when I hear directors talk, especially when it's the director that talks about if a film was ill received. It's like nobody sets out to make a bad movie.
Of course
Like
not.
nobody sets out to make a cash grab product thing. But there are cases where you watch a film and go, this has to have been. Like the one that sticks in my head is Jumanji, the reboot one that we watched a couple of months ago. Welcome to the Jungle.
Yeah, because there are scenes in it that are just lazy.
Yeah, to me that felt like, who's this movie for? We didn't need this, right? With John Wick 2, there was a very big chance of being like, that was the chance. Because it was like, John Wick 1 is interesting, but when first time I watched it, I'm like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. Hence the phrase, it's John Wick good. But this film the reason I enjoyed this film so much is because of the first one. And it sounds weird to say that because on our first episode we were like, yeah, it's good, but it's John Wick good. And we're sitting there watching this going, this is better because I kind of care about John Wick now because they managed to do something impressive, which is like they presented this action noir film and then they brought back and they stayed consistent to what they set up. They didn't move away and try and like veer into other categories to try and be popular and like make it work. They were confident in what they had, which is the stunt work. And it's so present. Like I haven't enjoyed when I started watching this, like even if I don't enjoy this movie, which I did actually, I'm gonna enjoy watching this stunt work because it's really well done. And the overall film is great. So I would say it's good with the flair of like Yann said, it's a great John Wick movie. So I have the flair of like great action movie. A modern action movie, which is sometimes really hard to do, but I really enjoyed this film. And I have a second question.
Okay.
Was John Wick 2 just John Wick good, or was it better than just John Wick good?
Well, I think Yann has already said that it's John Wick good.
Yeah, it's an excellent John Wick movie, so that's even better. That's
even better than John Wick good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would say that it shocked me how enjoyable it was, so I think that it was better than John Wick good.
So, should we retire the phrase, it was John Wick good?
Yeah, now that we have flares, I think we can. You explained that at the start anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's a sad farewell to the rating. It was good. It was John Wick good. So we say a sad farewell to the rating John Wick good.
And it's actually also cool for the guy that many people said he couldn't act in Dracula because now obviously he produces Keanu Reeves, and the world actually got wind of the title for the third one via his own social media. So it's like, is John Wick.
Cool guy.
I have things I love. I have to add. We now have access as a family thing, and I included Anouk in there. YouTube Premium. I watched Impulse, which is great. That's very nice YouTube originals, which I recommend. And things I hate, spoilery trailers. I watched, it would be interesting to talk about this one, but I'm not sure we will, A Simple Favor, Paul Feig's new movie.
I seen the trailer was out, but I haven't watched it.
I've watched it, and I don't feel the need to watch the movie because...
there was a whole thing in it.
Well, there's still a mystery about what Blake Lively is doing with her life, but still I had the feeling I knew everything.
Right.
So that's when I decided to stop watching trailers. But now I'm in danger zone because Captain Marvel has just released a trailer, and I'm not sure what to do when I know that they avoid spoilers at all costs in their trailers. I don't know what to do.
Did anyone notice the bait and switch they did in the Avengers trailer?
The what?
In the Avengers, the trailer for Infinity War, it's Captain America like holding off Thanos. When it's not, it's Thor. No, it's not. It's not Thor. It's like what's his face? With the stone in his head. Vision. Like that scene is Vision there at the end. So they did a bait and switch.
No, he does. He does it. Like, but it's funny, you know, when he does some teeth acting, you mean?
Yeah, that bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. It was in the trailer at the time. Yeah, you can really see that Captain America will suffer. And, well, I don't know. I can just I can see his teeth. I see what you mean.
Yeah,
yes,
they swap out the characters. They
Yes.
swapped it out for, like, so there's intentionally not in the film to mislead you.
Yes.
I like when they do that, because it's like, oh, God, that's going to happen. And you go, it's like, oh, it wasn't. What a good twist.
I really noticed that he was just doing some teeth acting instead of really, like... being suffering and dying or anything, but yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Have you watched the Captain Marvel?
I have not watched the trailer yet. No,
Okay.
I've watched the Mary Poppins trailer.
Oh,
where you see her leave in the trailer. I'm like, why have they shown her leave? I know obviously she's going to go, but don't show that in the trailer.
I'm quite excited actually for that.
I do. I hope that Dick Van Dyke does a London accent again. That's what I'm most excited for.
No, because he doesn't. The character he's playing doesn't have a London accent. He has a RP accent.
I know, which is a big shame.
So we'll see.
Mary Poppins.
so should we get ourselves excommunicadi from this episode now?
Yeah.
We've been excommunicado.
Yes. Right. So in a few seconds you'll get a new outro from Adam. Stay for that.
Yeah.
Thank you again for listening. We were
Adam.
Anouk.
and Yann. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Just Plain Standard podcast. If you like what you heard, you can leave us a review via iTunes. If you want to keep up to date with what we're doing, you can check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Good, Bad, Standard Podcast on both platforms. If you fancy seeing the live streams that we talk about on the podcast, they can be found on youtube.com. You search for Milk in a Wineglass. There are other bits and bobs on there too, just to see what Yann's up to during the week. And if you really like us, like really, really like us, why don't you head on over to patreon.com/goodbadstandardpodcast and have a look if you want to support us. Any small donation is appreciated.